July 23rd, 1968, a 9-year-old boy walked into Motown Records in Detroit and changed music history. His name was Michael Jackson. And Barry Gordy, the founder of Motown, wasn't even there to see it. The audition was videotaped, sent to Gordy in Los Angeles. And when he watched it, he almost said no, because Gordy had sworn he'd never sign another kid act after Stevie Wonder. The headaches, the child labor laws, the complications, but then he watched 9-year-old Michael Jackson perform, and everything changed. This is the story of the audition that launched the Jackson 5, and the lie Motown told about how it happened. Jackson 5 weren't discovered overnight. They'd been performing for years. Their father, Joe Jackson, had been drilling them relentlessly in Gary, Indiana, practicing after school, performing at local clubs, entering talent shows. On August 13th, 1967, they won the amateur night competition at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. Gladys Knight of the Pips was in the audience that night. She was blown away. She immediately told Barry Gordy he had to check them out. Gordy refused. He just signed Stevie Wonder, who'd started at Motown when he was 11 years old, and Gordy was done with kid acts. The logistics were too complicated. The risk was too high. But the Jackson 5 kept grinding. In November of 1967, Joe Jackson signed them to Steeltown Records, a small Gary-based label. They recorded their first single, Big Boy. It moved 10,000 copies, a local hit, but not enough to break them nationally. Then came Bobby Taylor. From July 12th to 27th, 1968, the Jackson 5 opened for Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers at Chicago's Regal Theater. Taylor was a Motown artist, and when he saw the Jackson brothers perform, he was blown away. Michael was 9 years old, but he sang like a man who'd lived a lifetime. He danced like James Brown. He commanded the stage like someone decades older. Bobby Taylor made a decision. He brought the Jackson 5 to Detroit. They stayed on the floor of Taylor's apartment the night of July 22nd. And the next day, July 23rd, Taylor and Motown executive Suzanne DePasa arranged for them to audition. The Jackson 5 walked into Hitsville, USA, Motown's headquarters on Woodward Avenue. Barry Gordy wasn't there. He was in Los Angeles, but producer Hank Cosby and other executives were. The boys performed James Brown's current hit, I Got the Feeling. Michael sang lead. The brothers harmonized. They moved in perfect synchronization, and everyone in the room knew they were watching something extraordinary. Hank Cosby's widow later recalled her husband coming home that day. I can recall the look in his eyes when he came home and told me about the audition, she said. He was absolutely blown out the water, just amazed. I've always remembered his exact words. I have no doubt that these kids are going to cover the world. The audition was videotaped. The tape was sent to Barry Gordy in Los Angeles, and Gordy had a problem. He'd already rejected their demo tape. He told his staff no more kid acts. He was focused on adult artists, sophisticated soul, the Motown sound. But when Gordy watched that tape, he saw 9-year-old Michael Jackson perform, and his reluctance disappeared. On stage, he was one kind of person. Gordy later said on Oprah's Masterclass, he was like this master of what he was doing. When he was through, he was very quiet and almost shy. The contrast stunned Gordy. Off stage, Michael was a quiet, polite child. On stage, he was a force of nature. And Gordy knew he was looking at a superstar. 3 days after the audition, on July 26, 1968, Barry Gordy returned to Detroit. He met with Joe Jackson and the boys, and he signed them to a 1-year contract with Motown. But there was a complication. The Jackson 5 were still under contract with Steeltown Records. Negotiations dragged on for months. And during that time, the boys performed at strip clubs to make extra income while their fathers and lawyers worked out the legal details. Finally, on March 11th, 1969, the day before Marlon's 12th birthday, the Jackson 5 signed an exclusive 7-year contract with Motown Records. Barry Gordy flew them to Los Angeles, and the machine went to work. In August of 1969, Motown's PR department, led by Suzanne DePasa, started spreading a story. Diana Ross had discovered the Jackson 5. It was a complete fabrication. Bobby Taylor discovered them. Bobby Taylor brought them to Detroit. Bobby Taylor set up the audition. But Motown wanted a bigger narrative. Diana Ross was the biggest star on the label, 17, Meth Kid. Attaching the Jackson 5 to her name would generate more publicity, so they rewrote history. Their first album was titled Diana Ross Presents, The Jackson 5. Press releases claimed Diana had found. Press releases claimed Diana had found them and personally brought them to Barry Gordy. Bobby Taylor was erased from the story. For decades, most people believed Diana Ross discovered the Jackson 5, and Bobby Taylor never got the credit he deserved. Motown also lied about Michael's age. When the Jackson 5 opened for industry insiders at the Daisy Club in Los Angeles in August of 1969, Michael was billed as an 8-year-old sensation. He was actually several days shy of his 11th birthday. Why lie? Because younger sounded more impressive. A 9-year-old prodigy was more marketable than an 11-year-old. So Motown shaved off 2 years and sold the myth. Years later, the truth came out. But the lies had already done their job. In September of 1969, Barry Gordy assembled a new songwriting and producing team called The Corporation. Barry Gordy, Alphonso Fons-Mizell, Freddie Perrin, and Deke Richards. Their sole mission was to write hits for the Jackson 5. They created I Want You Back. Originally, the song had been written for Gladys Knight, but Gordy gave it to the Jackson 5 instead. It was recorded in September, released in early October, and the Jackson 5 promoted it everywhere. The Hollywood Palace, The Ed Sullivan Show, every major variety show on television. On January 31st, 1970, I Want You Back hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 1 week, but it launched something unstoppable. Their next single, ABC, hit #1. So did The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. The Jackson 5 became the first group in history to have their first 4 singles all reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. By the end of 1970, the Jackson 5 were the biggest pop group in America. Motown capitalized on their success. Jackson 5 Dolls, a Saturday morning cartoon show called The Jackson 5 lunchboxes, posters, magazine covers. Jackson-mania swept the nation. And at the center of it all was 9-year-old Michael Jackson, the boy Barry Gordy almost didn't sign. By 1975, the Jackson 5 had sold over 60 million records, but they were earning only 2.8% of royalties from Motown. Joe Jackson wanted more: creative control, better pay, ownership of their music. The Jacksons announced their departure from Motown at a press conference at the Rainbow Grill in Manhattan. They'd signed with Epic Records, which offered a royalty rate of 20% per record. But there was a problem. Motown owned the name Jackson 5, so the brothers had to become the Jacksons, and Jermaine didn't come with them. He'd married Barry Gordy's daughter, Hazel. Staying at Motown was the only option. Randy Jackson, the youngest brother, replaced him. The legal battles were brutal. Motown won a breach of contract settlement. The Jacksons lost their name, but they gained their freedom. In 1978, they released Destiny, an album they produced and written themselves. It was a massive success, and it encouraged Michael to return to solo work. The rest is history. On July 23rd, 1968, 9-year-old Michael Jackson walked into Motown Records and auditioned for a label that didn't want him. Barry Gordy had sworn off Kid Axe, but when he watched that tape, he changed his mind. The Jackson 5 became one of the most successful groups in music history. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997. 3 of their singles are in the Grammy Hall of Fame: I Want You Back, ABC, I'll Be There. And it all started with an audition that almost didn't happen. Bobby Taylor fought to bring them to Detroit. Hank Cosby recognized their talent. Suzanne DePasta arranged the session. And Barry Gordy, despite his reluctance, signed them. But Motown lied about how it happened. They erased Bobby Taylor from the story. They gave credit to Diana Ross. They lied about Michael's age. And for decades, the fabricated version became the official history. The truth is simpler. A 9-year-old boy from Gary, Indiana walked into a recording studio and sang like no child had ever sung before. And the people in that room knew they were witnessing the beginning of something that would change music forever. Barry Gordy called Michael Jackson the greatest artist who ever lived. And it started with a videotaped audition on July 23rd, 1968. If you want to hear more untold stories about the legends who changed music history, like and subscribe to King of Rock and Roll. Stay tuned for more content.